Take her for a copper, she eats little, speaks less, and she is worthless to us. That was the first thing I ever heard of the woman who was mine, shouted across the mud of Blackpine by the very man who should have died to keep her safe. I had come to the border gathering hooded and unnamed, as I always came when I meant to see the truth of a place. A king learns nothing when he arrives beneath his banners. So I stood at the edge of the trade blocks in a plain gray cloak, one traveler among the horse scopers and the debt brokers, and let the reek of the place teach me. Blackpine is where the border packs send what they no longer want: blunt blades, lame cattle. And in the lean season, people, quiet omegas whose families had decided a mouth was worth more empty than full. I had told myself I was only passing through. Then she stepped up onto the block, and the mark over my heart, cold for 30 winters, cold since the night my first bond withered before it ever bloomed, burned. It did not warm, it seared. A roar of rightness went up under my ribs, so sudden and so vast that I set my hand against a post to keep my feet. My wolf, silent for half my life, rose in me like a tide breaking a wall, and the old dead brand on my chest lit again, searing itself back into living flame. Across the mud, she flinched, one hand rising to her own collarbone, to the place where the twin of my mark would be, and I knew. Before I saw her face clearly, before I knew her name, my whole body knew. Mine found. At last, and here in this foul market, being sold by her own blood. I made myself look at her, and not at the men I already wanted to answer for this. She was thin and plainly dressed, her dark hair bound back without vanity, and she stood on that block as though it were a hall and she a guest in it. That was what undid me, not beauty, though she had it, but dignity. They had put her up to be haggled over like a heifer, and she met the crowd's stares with a still, level calm, chin lifted, hands folded, refusing to weep for their sport. Whatever they had done to make her small, it had not reached the center of her. That they could not sell. Corwin Marrow's girl, muttered a broker beside me, sensing my attention. Ilsa. Third daughter, no dowry, no packworth, an omega with a weak wolf, they say. Father's remarrying, and the new wife wants her gone. He'll take near anything. He named her worthless, I said. The broker shrugged. Cheaper that way. Corwin Marrow stood at the foot of the block with his sons, thumbs in his belt, calling her faults out to thin the price. She was frail. She was silent. Her wolf had never once shown. She would give a man no strong sons. Beside him, a hard-faced woman I took for the new wife watched Ilsa with the flat patience of someone waiting for a stain to be scrubbed out. And a lean man in fine furs had begun to bid, a slaver from the deep marshes whose custom I knew, and whose custom would have ended with Ilsa somewhere no rescue would ever reach. I have fought 3 border wars. I have never crossed a stretch of ground as fast as I crossed that mud, and I did it walking. 200 gold, I said. The whole block went quiet. 200 gold is a village. It is a year of a lord's rents. I said it plainly, the way you set down a stone, and I put back my hood so they could see I meant it. The slaver laughed once, then read my face and stopped laughing. Corwin Marrow's mouth worked. 2, my lord, she is not worth a tenth. I know exactly what she is worth, I said. You do not. That is the whole of the difference between us. I counted the gold out into his hands myself, coin by coin, more than his farm and his name together would fetch. And while I counted, I watched the greed bloom in his eyes and hated him for how easily it came. When the last coin fell, I turned my back on him as though he had ceased to exist, which to me he had, and I looked up at the woman on the block. Here is the thing the crowd waited for, leaning in, certain they knew the shape of it, that having bought her, I would take her. That is the story Blackpine tells 100 times a season. It is not my story. Ilsa Marrow, I said low for her and not for them. I have paid your father not to own you to unmake what he did. The debt is his shame, not your chain. As of this breath you belong to no one but yourself. I lifted my hand toward her, palm open, offered and not demanding. I am Rogan Duskbane, Alpha King of the Grey Reaches. My mark woke when I saw you, and I think yours did too. But a bond is not a bill of sale. You are free. Free to walk from this place with gold of your own and never see my face again. I will send you wherever you name. Or free to come down and take my hand because you choose to, and for no other reason under the sky. The choosing is yours. It was always meant to be yours. For a long moment she only looked at me, and I let her look, and I did not lower my hand though it began to tremble, which it has not done in battle. Then her fingers rose again to her collarbone, pressed there, and I saw the answering light bloom warm beneath her worn collar, the twin flame kindling to mine. They told me my wolf was weak, she said. Her voice was quiet and it carried, clear as struck iron, so that every soul in that market heard it. She was never weak. She was only waiting for someone worth waking for. And she came down off the block, not lifted, not pulled, walking her head high, and she put her hand in mine. The bond closed over us both like a door swinging shut against a storm, and I felt her wolf rise to meet mine, silver and unafraid, no more weak than the moon is weak. The mark on my chest, dead half my life, beat now like a second heart. I raised our joined hands, so the whole of Blackpine could see. "This is your Luna," I said, and let my king's voice fill the square. "Fated of the gray reaches, freely come. Let every pack from here to the sea know she was found in the mud they threw her into, and that the man who called her worthless will answer to history for the smallness of his sight." I turned once more to Corwin Marrow. He stood clutching his gold with the dawning, sickened understanding of a man who has just learned the price of the thing he sold. That he had held a queen in his house and starved her, named her nothing, and handed her away for coin to the one man in all the world who would know her worth. His wife's flat patience had cracked into something like fear. His sons would not meet my eyes. I did not raise a hand to them. I have never needed to. "Keep the gold," I told him gently, which was crueler than any blow. "You will spend it and it will be gone. She will be lunar until she is old. Every year of her life will be the sentence you passed on yourself today. Live long enough to see it." Then I wrapped my cloak around my Luna's shoulders. She was cold and covered, and it was the first thing anyone had given her in a long while without a price on it. And we walked out of Blackpine together, my wolf singing under my ribs a song I had thought I would go to my grave never hearing. She asked me, on the road north, why I had let her choose when the bond would have bound her anyway. I told her the truth, that a mark can be woken, but a heart must be given, and I would not spend my life beside a woman who had been handed to me like the omega on the block. I wanted the one who walked down of her own will, or I wanted none at all. She rode in silence a while, watching the pines go dark against the last of the light, and I let the silence be hers to fill or keep. Then she took my hand again, chose it a second time, unasked, when no crowd watched and nothing compelled her. And I understood I had been forgiven for buying her before I had even finished asking to be. I will tell the rest briefly, as the years told it. Ilsa was Luna of the Gray Reaches for 41 winters. Her wolf, the weak one, the one no one wanted, ran silver at the head of every hunt and was sung of long after. She was fierce in council and gentle at every hearth, and the omegas of the border learned her name the way frightened things learn the name of a safe place. Her father came to our gates once in a hard winter, gray and diminished, the gold long gone as I had promised him it would be. She could have turned him into the snow. She did not. She fed him at her own table and set him by her own fire and let him see plainly the life he had thrown away, the crown he had sold for a copper, and then she sent him home warm. He wept the whole way, they say. It was the most merciful and the most terrible thing I ever watched her do, and I loved her for both halves of it. That is the reckoning, not a blade. A long, bright, unarguable life lived where all the scorners could see it, until the ones who called her worthless grew old whispering that they had always known, somehow, that the quiet Marrow girl was meant for something more. They had not known, but she had. She had only been waiting on that block in the mud for someone worth coming down for. I am glad, past all my telling of it, that it was me.